In this video I'm going to be going over how I replaced the clutch in my 4.0 Mustang, and I'll be covering all the bolt sizes and various things you need to keep an eye out for. While this video is car specific, it will give you a much better idea of what you're facing if you're considering changing the clutch in your car. My buddy Andrew is more than kind enough to allow me to use his shop's lift and transmission jack to do the job. If you don't have access to that kind of equipment, the job is still entirely possible. You're just going to have to struggle a little bit more, and it's going to take longer. Lastly, this video is targeting people who are wanting to replace their clutch themselves, so I expect you to have some mechanical experience. If you're intimidated by changing your own oil, then this video may teach you some things, but it shouldn't act as a step-by-step, and you're better off paying someone else to do it for you. With that being said, here's a list of all the tools you're going to need to do this job properly. And let's begin.
So using a 5/8 wrench, take the exhaust off. So you're going to need to do the exhaust hangers. These are 13mm bolts all the way around. There's one right here that's really hard to get to. There's 3 mounts. There's this one, and then this one. And then once you do that, then the exhaust will come free, and then it's a matter of the drive shaft. Then next, you're going to need to do the 12mm 12-point bolts for your U-joints. I put a screwdriver in a hole right there to block it so it can't turn, and I need a breaker bar because the electric impact isn't strong enough to break these. And then loosen them up. Do that to both sides.
The drive shaft is heavy and awkward. If you drop it, you can easily damage it. An extra set of hands to catch a drive shaft when it comes loose is very helpful.
Once your drive shaft is out, make sure you put all your bolts back where they came from. 18mm for the transmission mount, and then a 1/2 inch or whatever the metric equivalent is for that. And then this comes out. And then once that mounts out, put your bolts back in where they belong. Make sure your transmission's supported. And then you're gonna need to do the two 15mm bolts on the header collector to the rest of the exhaust, and you have to do that to both sides. So then once you get the exhaust pieces out, and I was very unfortunate enough to decide that my car wanted to break a bolt right here, so I get to deal with that. That's going to be a fun one. It looks like a stud of some kind, and yay! And then the other side came clean, and you can see this one's not broke because this one actually is in good quality. And do your shift linkage. This is a 13mm, and then up here is a 10mm. So once you get the shift linkage undone, then you need the speed sensor, and I'm not sure what that one is. And then you need to take the starter out and then get the bell house, and then the transmission will come out. You want to do the two 10mm bolts that hold the starter on, and then there's a 10mm and a 13mm for the wires on your starter, 10 and 13, and then the starter comes right out. So in order to get these top ones, you gotta get a little crafty and hope that you have the right swivel sockets.
The bell house bolts are in 1/2 inch. I forgot to record that part.
Might need a pry. Yeah. Oh, come off evenly. Yeah. it back very carefully. There we go. That should slowly... Wait, no, we gotta do the hydro line. Okay. We need a hook thingy. These are 12 millimeter etorx 6-point. I didn't do a video of the flywheel or the pressure plate, but those were shoot, the sensor's at. Damn it. I don't know. So you're gonna have to do the pressure plate bolts, which are 10 millimeter. I think there's like 8 of them. They go around there. You want to do it in a star pattern as you loosen it, and then it'll come off. The clutch disc will come out. The pressure plate will come off, and then you do the 12 millimeter etorx all the way for the flywheel, and then the flywheel comes off. Should have came. Holy shit, that's a heavy bitch.
It's also a warm bitch.
And there you have it. Make sure that you hand thread each of these first before you use any sort of electric or power tool to help zip them down. Make sure you clean the surface of the flywheel before you apply the pressure plate. You don't want any dirt to get stuck there. Dirt or oil. Can never be too clean. So you tighten these in a star pattern using the same socket that you removed them with. You tighten them in a star pattern, and you do 25 foot-pounds all the way around, and then 52 foot-pounds all the way around. And then that's on there. And then make sure you keep this clean. And put the pilot bearing in the socket and gently tap her in. And you just slowly tap the pilot bearing in. Stress this enough, you gotta make sure that the surface of your flywheel is clean. Might as well clean everything since you're never gonna see it.
Same deal with the pressure plate. You want to clean the surface that touches the flywheel, or not touches the flywheel. You want to clean the surface that grips onto the clutch. You need a clean, smooth mating surface free of debris, and oil, and contaminants. And then you can put the pressure plate in. If you put the clutch in backwards, you're going to get to do this job a second time. The thick side of the clutch goes towards the pressure plate side and not the flywheel. The instructions that come with your clutch will explain this.
make sure that your clutch alignment tool is all the way into the pilot bearing, and then you can begin to properly torque these bolts. The sequence is 15 foot-pounds, then 25, and then 33 to finish it, is what I read. And then you do it in a star pattern, just like you would tires. And then once that's torqued to spec, and make sure you use Loctite on these and the flywheel bolts, you can take the alignment tool out and then work on getting the transmission back in. So I didn't really show a lot of the putting back together procedure. Ah, fucking lens. So it's done. I didn't show much of the procedure of putting it back together because it's in reverse order of taking it apart. I had a lot of issues with getting the transmission to line back up, and fought it, and what ended up working is, don't do this, is slowly tightening the bolts around and using that to squish it together, and I do not recommend that. You're gonna have to fight with it, and that's probably the hardest part, is remating the transmission to the engine. And then once that's done, you just reconnect the O2 sensors, you do the exhaust, you do the transmission mount, and everything just goes right back together. And then when you get finished and you go to the inside of your car and your clutch pedal is all the way to the floor, you're probably gonna panic just as much as I did. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to grab the clutch and manually jerk it off over and over, and then eventually it'll get clutch feel. And now I have a clutch because I jerked it off, and it's happy, and I'm happy.
So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and if you found this video helpful, then consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.